Another individual was known by Ibn Arabi. He was a Spanish Sufi who became very popular of the 12th century, 13th century. He, in his writings and teachings, promoted the idea that everything was Allah and Allah was everything. Because when you say Allah is everywhere, then you go inside of every atom, inside of every neutron and proton and electron and quark or whatever, individual particles, Allah is there. So in the end, what exists but Allah? Everything is Allah and Allah is everything. And this is known as monism. In English, they refer to it philosophically as monism. Everything is Allah and Allah is everything. Now this belief, in some of his writings, he told his people, why are you worshipping someone beyond you, God who is beyond you? God is in you and God is in me. You don't need to worship any God beyond yourself. Worship yourself. Right? This is clear deviation. Some people say, to say that Allah is above his creation is to put him in a place. This is one of the arguments. They say it's to put him in a place inside of the four dimensions of height, width, depth, so on and so. They're putting him in a location to say he's above. Well, we say no, it is not. To say he is everywhere is to put him in a place. Because you've put him inside of his creation. That is putting him in a place. When we say he is beyond his creation, we're not putting him in a location, because location came into existence with creation. Allah is where he was before he created. He's in the same place. Not bound by time, space, etc., etc. He's in the same place. He's beyond his creation. And when you go up in the creation, through the seven heavens, you end up with the highest level of the seven heavens. After that comes what? The kursi, the footstool, which is over everything. Wasi'a kursi was samawati wal ard. His footstool encompasses the universe. And beyond that, above it, and the universe in relationship to the footstool is like a brass ring thrown in the middle of the desert. The desert being like the footstool, and the whole of creation, the whole universe, which is expanding and all these other things, is like that brass ring in the middle of a desert. And the kursi, in relationship to the arsh or the throne of Allah, is like the brass ring thrown in the middle of the desert. So what do you think we are like in relationship to the kursi? This is what Prophet ﷺ said, authentic narrations describing the creation. And Allah, and that is the end of creation. The arsh, that is the end of creation. What is beyond the arsh? Allah. Not inside of his creation, but beyond the creation. So we don't have to, as he said, have the idea that Allah is behind some planet, etc., etc. No. Allah controls everything in the universe without having to be inside of it. You see, their idea is to make Allah like us. If you want to control things, you have to be inside. You have to be on the spot. But we, in our own way, look at the ability to do things by remote control as being advancements of technology. When we send a Mars explorer to Mars, and it gets down over there, and we're here manipulating some things, sending the signals, and the Mars lander comes out and it rolls around, picks up some Earth, and does all this kind of stuff. We consider this an advancement in technology. We don't have to be on Mars to do that. So hey, if we can accept that as advancement, surely Allah is beyond that. Surely Allah is beyond that. He doesn't have to be inside of His creation to control it. Now, if one looks at proofs, this is just some logical reasoning to deal with some of the arguments, reasoned arguments that they make. But if we go to human nature, and we want to determine, because we're saying that belief in Allah as He is actually natural. It agrees with the basic nature with which people were created. If we want to understand the natural understanding, we need to go to the child. The little child, 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old. We ask that child, where is Allah? And of course his parents have indoctrinated him that Allah is everywhere. So he says, Allah is everywhere. And then you ask the child, is Allah in filth and places of filth? What is the child going to say? No. No. You can't believe Allah is in filth. No. He'll reject that. The child, she will reject that right off. Naturally, they reject the idea that the creator of this universe is within filth of this world that we consider nasty, we're flushing it away or whatever we're doing with it. And the child will then go on to give you examples of where Allah isn't. He will look around and say, hey, Allah's not in my chair either, because I'm sitting on the chair. Right? Doesn't make sense. Allah is not in my pencil, because the point breaks and I have to resharpen it again. Right? Allah is not in this place. And it goes on to tell you all these different places. They will tell you where Allah isn't. Because naturally, they understand that it is against reason to accept that Allah is within these lowly states of His creation. Now, of course, when you're discussing with a person who has gone to school now, he graduated, he did philosophy 101 or whatever, and you're now trying to give this kind of discussion with that person, and you put to the person, hey, what do you think? You believe Allah is in filth? The person will stop for a minute. Oof. Inside their hearts, they know this is not right. But they don't want to lose the argument. That's what philosophy 101 taught you, right? Don't lose the argument. You can use this logic and that logic or whatever and get out of any argument. So they say, yes. Though inside their hearts, they don't believe it. Because they don't want to lose the argument. So you can't, as I said, you want to check this natural proof, you got to go to the kids. Because the kids are not about winning or losing the argument. They just tell you what comes to them naturally. Whereas adults, they have another agenda. Right? Now, if we go beyond the natural arguments to what may be called the prayer proof, the proof in prayer that Allah is not within His creation, the very fact that worshipping objects of Allah's creation is forbidden is proof that Allah is not within His creation. Because if were He in His creation, then what's wrong with worshipping each other, worshipping the idols, everything else? We have to say this is okay. Why not? But Islam, of course, forbids that. Proof can also be found in the principle of the ascension, the Mi'raj, where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ goes up into the heavens, to the highest heaven, where the angels could not go beyond, and Allah communicated with him. Allah was above him, above His throne. This is all among the evidences. And we can find in the Quran a variety of different verses which speak about things going up to Allah, whether it is the angel and the spirit which ascend to Him in a day whose length is like 50,000 years. تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. Or Allah talks about good sayings going up to Him. إليه يصعد الكلم الطيب. Or we find Allah describing himself as Al-Qahir, for example, فوق عبادي وهو القاهر فوق عبادي, he is the irresistible above his worshippers. Or Allah uses the attribute Al-Ali, right? Al-Ali, which means the one above which there is nothing, the highest. And Allah describes the believers saying, يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُمْ مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ, those who fear their Lord who is above him. But the final evidence, because of course some people may bring some other verses from the Quran, and we look at them, where Allah said that he's closer to you than your jugular vein, and say, hey, what does that mean? We say before looking at that, let's go to the Sunnah. We've looked at the Quran, so many verses in the Quran pointing to Allah being above his creation. And we can find in Sahih Muslim. In Sahih Muslim, in volume 1, page 306, as well as in Sahih Bukhari, volume 9, page 386. We can find, this is in Sahih Muslim alone, volume 1, page 271. Volume 1, page 271. A hadith by Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam, in which he narrates that he had a slave girl who was tending his flock of sheep in a particular location called Jawariya. One day he came to check up on his flock, and he found that some sheep were missing. So he asked the girl, where are the sheep? She said a wolf came and ran off with them. He got mad, he got upset, so he slapped her in her face, whack, as parents in ignorance do to their children today, people who call themselves Muslims. But he realized when he did this, he had committed a grave error, because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had forbade the slapping of or hitting of anything in its face. Not even a dog or a donkey were not allowed to hit anything or anybody in its face. And that's why boxing is haram. Boxing is haram because it's all about knocking a guy out by punching him in his face. Right? Anyway, the point is that he realized his wrong. So he went to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and told him what took place. When he did, the Prophet ﷺ became extremely upset. He became, red with anger. And so he asked the Prophet ﷺ, can I free her as penance, atonement for what I've done? The Prophet ﷺ said, okay, bring her. When he brought her, he asked her two questions. The first question he said to her was, Aina Allah? Where is Allah? He could have asked her, do you believe in Allah? But he didn't. He asked her, where is Allah? Why? Because people there believed in Allah. As I mentioned the verse before, if you ask them who created the heavens and earth, they say Allah. But their idea of Allah was confused. They had somehow believing Allah was within the creation, in their idols and all these other kind of things. So he wanted to know, did she have the Islamic clarity? So he asked her, Aina Allah? Where is Allah? And she said, Fis sama, above the heavens. Then he asked her,